morning, everyone. Thank you, Kathy Kiley, and everybody from the Ad Club for inviting me here to talk about two things that I love, branding, and particularly the Care.com brand. We are in its infancy. We're still in our infancy right now. We're only about 7 years old, founded in 2007. And I wanted to just start out this presentation by anchoring this presentation with a story. So just a personal story. This is a picture of my family, actually, and I'm the one with sand in the suit here, looking very unhappy. I love this photo because it's my sister there in the middle with a banana in her hand, and my other sister with her Princess Leia braids. And you don't know my mom, but that expression on her face was like, are you kidding me? You're going to take a photo? I think everybody has a photo like this taken on a beach at some undisclosed time in their past. But what makes this particularly interesting for me is that it ended up being our only family photo of us all together, because shortly after this photo was taken, my father passed away and left my mom with the three of us. And my father was a professor at UMass Boston. He taught Chinese. And on a salary like that, we only had, my mom had about $400 in her account when he passed away. So what ended up happening is we all went and ended up staying with our grandparents for a few months when my mom got her wardrobe together, got her resume together, and went out and got a full-time job. And we did end up coming back home. But, over the next 15, 18 years, we really had a front row seat of watching my mom struggle with care. We all wore keys around our necks, and we let ourselves in, and my eldest sister, Alyssa, watched us in the afternoon. But we really, we had to live kind of leanly, and my mom ended up taking jobs that were not so high paying so that she could be with us in the afternoons and take care of us. So when we talk about Care.com, I think the temptation is to just think of it as a kind of a babysitting site. But I wanted to just, not to bring you all down, because we had a very happy childhood, but just to kind of anchor this conversation in the real struggles that families face when they're trying to balance their economic opportunity, they're trying to balance their work demands with stuff that's happening at home, and actually taking care of the people that matter the most to us in the world, which is our family members. So with that story, I just wanted to kind of underscore that of all the things that families spend money on, and there are great industries and companies that have been built around these services, care is actually of the most critical importance for families in terms of what they spend money on. And the reason, not just because of the emotional component, but actually it's really one of the top budgetary items that we spend money on. We don't think about it really because we kind of think about the big household expenditures being housing or education, or our cars or other things. But you can see it's actually higher than housing, and it's higher than college. And people don't plan for it at all. As opposed to we save for college, and there's a lot of, I actually come from UPromise as well in my background, and we help people save for college. But people save for college, but they don't necessarily save for care. And it's just kind of an interesting thing, is that we just spend and spend and spend, and we don't really realize it. So how big is it? It's huge. So this encompasses not just the child care sector, but also senior care and what people spend money. It's $243 billion spent in the United States on care. And Care.com is really new. We only are penetrated about 2% into the marketplace. So we really have a long runway to go in terms of what we can do. This is a bit of background. We're in 16 countries currently. We acquired a company called Betroit, and it's based out of Berlin. We acquired them in 2012, and it allowed us to quickly expand into the European countries. And then we're always looking to expand. Um, One of the things that we look at when we're thinking about expanding is when we're looking at new markets is it's sort of a health barometer of what the economy is like in terms of care. And one of the things we look at is the percentage of average income that is spent on care. So here in the United States, again, it's $243 billion. 38% of a person's average income is spent on care. And what's happening in the UK right now is the cost of housing has become so high that people are having to make this horrible decision of whether or not they should actually work or they should spend it on housing. And this particularly impacts women. So they're the ones that actually end up feeling it the most. But I just wanted to also call out, this is second only to Switzerland, where families spend, and the average person spends 77% of their average income on care. So you can imagine kind of what's going through somebody's head when they're trying to figure out, okay, this is how much I make and this is how much I spend. It doesn't really end up being a lot left over. So again, we're new. 2007, we were formed, and at the time that we entered into the market, there wasn't a lot of options for families in terms of finding care. So you could post, do you remember classifieds? All right, so you could post a classified and wait, or you could go through a nanny agency. You still can, but it's about $5,000 to $7,000 to get a caregiver through a nanny agency. Or I actually still hear people doing this is going onto Craigslist, which always kind of interests me. There's not a lot there in terms of vetting or making sure you know who is showing up at your doorstep, but these are the options that were available for families back then. And we came in and we really disrupted the marketplace, and we actually designed the product to be mass market. So it's roughly about $37 a month to get a Care.com membership, which gives you access to literally hundreds of caregivers. And that's a big competitive advantage for us over, say, a nanny agency. Don't read this because it's a lot of type. I just wanted to kind of visually represent the incredible diversity we have in our service. So even within childcare, we have the full range, and then senior care and things that you might not necessarily think of as care, like housekeeping and tutoring, or kind of the afternoon ride, the transportation, camps, things like that. We offer the full range of services within care. And early on, our founder and CEO, Sheila Marcello, set out to create what she called the Amazon for care, which is really the A to Z in care, which encompasses everything. So people come in and they, usually they have a child and they're like, oh, I need a sitter, I need a nanny, I need, childcare. Or daycare, and so they come into the service looking for all kinds of care situations, au pairs and nannies and full-time and all sorts of, situations. Then they have two, and then their care needs change. And then, as they kind of go through our service, they get older, the kids get older, and then all of a sudden they're finding themselves having to deal with that critical after-school care. And who here is a working parent? Like everyone? So you're probably living this to some degree or another, what we call the hurricane years, where you're dealing with the rapidly moving parts at home in the afternoon, and then perhaps you have a grandparent who breaks a hip and ends up in the hospital. They're in rehab for a little bit, and then they need care when they get out. And the senior care issues can last for years. So all in all, the way we think of it is, we're, again, early, but we're really trying to help families manage this entire spectrum of needs that can last about 15, 20 years. It's our mission to help families connect with great caregivers. But the other piece of it is, and I just wanted to mention this, is that while we earn the bulk of our money from families, we also have a two-sided marketplace. And so we're always looking at the provider side of it to make sure that they have access to great families and great jobs, not just in the home, but also in companies. And so we have a dual mission of helping these two parties connect. The other piece about it is that at Care.com, we're extremely mission-oriented in the sense that we deeply care about helping families. We're always trying to think of what's the best user experience and how can we help, through our products, create better care opportunities for people. But on the other hand, just in case you think we're a bunch of feelers over there, we're actually very hard-driving, analytical, high-growth, aggressive, ambitious, and we're constantly growing. And so there's kind of this interesting dynamic between being very aggressive and analytical, data-oriented, but then also being very mission-oriented. And actually, I feel like this combination, though at times can feel like it's at odds, actually creates a very interesting culture and work dynamic that actually helps us grow even faster. Working it all. Just a quick note on how the service actually works. Has anybody used Care.com? That's good to see. Thank you. So for those who don't know, what you do is you actually come in, it's free to join, you post a job, and then you wait and you get replies back from the caregivers. And if you see somebody you want to hire, or somebody you like, then you actually go ahead and upgrade and pay us, and then we actually give you access to that caregiver. So it's really a system that works well for everybody because families can see actually if the service works, and the caregivers can kind of really target what families they want to work with. Our caregivers are our product. So, unlike other brands like a bank or something, which may have branches where you can kind of expand your brand experience, this really is our product, and it is online, and then the providers are an extension of our product. So we did a lot of investment in the product itself to make sure that we were kind of providing a basis of quality for families to connect with. So we do a lot of stuff that's behind the scenes that we don't really talk about. But the most important thing that we do is actually give families a lot of tools in terms of background checks and other things that help them make really good decisions for their families in terms of who they're hiring. And the background checks that we offer are from the very kind of baseline preliminary all the way to a private investigator figuring out all the dirt. Depending on your level of paranoia, we've got it all. But that actually protects the community. And that's led to a very high member satisfaction. So we have about an 80% match rate, which is pretty good, and 85% of people are satisfied with their caregiver. We're not a nanny placement service, so we're not placing people in people's homes. But it just does turn out that people end up saying, I have a Care.com sitter, I have a Care.com nanny. And so it ends up being an extension of our brand. Just a little bit about our monetization and our business structure, the way it is. So what we've built is this amazing database of caregivers and families. And it's actually very hard to replicate, and it's taken a lot of investment to get there. And then we monetize it several different ways. And the first way we do is on the family side, we offer a host of kind of financial services for them. So they can actually pay their sitter legally and have their nanny taxes taken care of. In 2012 was a very busy year for us. We acquired a lot of companies, a lot of brand integrations. But we acquired a company called Breedlove and Associates that does nanny taxes. So we offer that service to families, and then we also offer kind of those quick peer-to-peer, quick payments. So if you're just trying to get your date night sitter paid. Again, I said that it's free for providers on the other side, but we do offer them some services to help them, promote their services and promote themselves. And then we also take the same database and actually sell it to companies. And we do this in a couple ways. So the companies are daycare centers, different kinds of businesses that are related to caregiving. And they can access our database of families to market to them because those are families looking for care. And then they can also, because there's a lot of churn, especially with daycares, they can actually use our service as a recruitment device, a recruitment service, to get more caregivers into their companies. And the last way we do it is actually we take that same database, if you can remember that, the families and the caregivers, and we use Care.com as an HR benefit to companies. And this is actually very important, especially for, well, all of you working families out there know that you're always looking for ways to balance work and life. We don't call it balance anymore, we call it integration. But essentially, it's really about trying to keep the wheels on the bus and everything running smoothly. So there are some great companies here in Boston, Digitas being one of them, that offer Care.com as a benefit. So we have a saying, when it's working at home, it's working at work. It's kind of related to that, when mama's happy, everyone's happy. It's the same kind of notion. It's that idea that when things are working at home, you can actually be productive and stay focused on what your job is. So offering this is actually of critical importance to women. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do around women in the workforce. Okay, so sorry, that was a long introduction to Care.com, but it's complicated over there. We're doing a lot. And sometimes we have to even manage our own complexity of what we're building. But I wanted to narrow it down to kind of my top 5 things that we've learned along the way when building this brand. So I'm going to start with something that Kathy Kiley mentioned just a moment ago, which is the secret formula that we've uncovered around success in TV. And it's really top secret. You probably have never heard this before. So you've heard it here. You can take a note. But I'm going to tell you what it is. That babies and puppies work. I know you've never heard that before, but it's amazing. It's instant magic. And of course, what we add to it is a good, healthy dose of those nuts and bolts. So I'm going to show you, this is a kind of a dissection of where we've been in TV. We do a ton of TV testing. And I kind of roughly grouped these in 3 different categories. So this is from the beginning of time, back in 2007 to current day. So we started out by thinking, what families really want to see is how life is great when you have a great sitter. And so we did a bunch of ads that were kind of outcome focused of, here's what life is like when you have a great sitter. It just is amazing. And then the second bucket is really kind of the process, where people are when they're trying to find a sitter, how frustrating that is or how weird. We did the spot No Drama Mama, which kind of showed the various options that you could get if you try to go out and find your own sitter, and we offended biker chicks everywhere. It's fun. You should go on YouTube and take a look at that. And then the third category is kind of like, hey, life is really hectic, and Care.com can help you manage all those moving parts. So we tested a lot over the last, I think we really ramped it up within the last 3 years when I came on board. We do all of our TV in-house, but I want to just give a big shout out to Jack Morton, who, where are you, Steve? Oh, you're over there somewhere. Who really helped us get our TV strategy off the ground, and also a big shout out to Christine Santo, who helps us bring all of our TV to life. So these are the big TV learnings of all the things I wanted to show you, that we kind of segmented those out. Where we really found traction is in that process of meeting people where they are in the process of trying to find a sitter. And these are the big things that we learned. So I think in the beginning, we wanted to just tell everything about the service, how it works. And so we were just trying to give a lot of information out to people. And this is kind of be like, you probably could have told me on day one, but memorability really trumps the information piece. So we actually did a lot of playing in terms of the direct response versus brand, to try to figure out what's the right balance of information and brand impact and memorability. And we got it down to a science where it was like 8 seconds here, 3 seconds there, and 3 seconds and then another 2 seconds. Then we had it all kind of balanced out. The other thing is, TV is not exactly, it's a pretty dull instrument. we do have a pretty aggressive TV attribution model where we really see what's working, and we'll actually pull an ad after 2 weeks if it's not working, because we can see it exactly in our traffic of when the spot aired and where the traffic bumps are. And so we kind of don't get attached to anything in particular. We'll always have a moment when something doesn't work and we have a good cry, and then we move on. So I think the thing is, it's expensive to test, but you just have to hold your nose and jump right in and just do it. And then the third thing is about getting kids on your side. And this is probably the most fun thing. I'm going to show you. This is my son, Aiden, by the way. He makes a cameo in this spot that I'm about to show you, so you can watch for it. But really to make sure that, what was interesting about this particular execution, we call it Tough Judges. So we had always directed our advertising at the moms. And what was really interesting is we kind of flipped it, and we started talking to kids. And we started saying, what do kids want in a babysitter? Never mind the moms, what do kids want? And I think in doing so, we tapped into something very interesting. We started advertising on kids' stations and talking to them directly, what do you want? And a couple things happened. One, when moms were watching the TVs with kids, and so they were seeing their kids were completely comfortable with babysitters. Not only that, but they had strong opinions about what they wanted. And then the other thing that was happening is if the mom wasn't in the room, the kids would go to the mom, and we had enough anecdotal stories to back this up. The kids would go to the mom and say, get a caregiver or get a sitter on care.com, because they're the ones that don't make me take naps.
What kind of babysitter would I want? Someone who hates naps. No. Someone who can make my baby brother not so stinky.
At care.com, we can help you find the perfect babysitter or nanny. Search from hundreds of babysitters in your area, plus get access to background checks and more.
And no broccoli.
Join free to get started. Care.com.
So that ended up being, we kind of struck pay dirt there, and we started hearing these stories. There are actually some parodies of this on YouTube. Kids are beautiful, they're photogenic, they're natural. Some of the stuff was scripted, some of it was not. Like the kid sniffing the broccoli like it was flowers. That was just a completely unscripted moment. And we just let ourselves in for the experience of shooting these kids. And it was so successful that we actually ended up franchising it out. And I'm not even showing you the German version of this, or the Swiss German of this, or the British version of this, but we franchised it out. And then we also did different kinds of tests within this category. We did a 0 to 3 with all babies. We did a senior care, a special needs spot, and then started going into pet sitting and housekeeping. It was very successful. I think we're ready to move on. And actually, I'm going to share with you, you're going to get a sneak preview of a couple of our new spots. And as I said, we like to get them out into the market for 2 weeks, essentially, and then we see how they're doing. And then if they don't work, we end up yanking them. So this one's only been out in market for a week, so I can't tell you how it's doing. But you tell me. But I think the thing is we actually want to keep with kids. But we thought we could get a little bit closer into the product. So we've integrated the product into the spots, and we've also moved the spots out of the studio.
When it was time to find a new babysitter, I had some requirements. She had to love fashion and Mr. Tickles. So we went to care.com and checked out lots of options. Very interesting. Uh-oh, this one hides vegetables and muffins. That's a no. Then we found Laurie. She's got everything I want and everything Mom wants. Plus, she's a great cook. Hey, what's in this muffin? Find your sitter now, care.com.
She's 4 years old. She was amazing. This is just one more. Again, it's out. We're about to put it onto the air, so you're the first to see it. I don't even think Al has seen it.
Okay, people, Mom's got a new job. That means a new sitter. But don't worry, I've got a plan. Care.com. For Jackson, a nature lover. For Emma, a potty trainer. For me, a rock star princess.
At Care.com, we can help you find the perfect babysitter or nanny. Search from hundreds of babysitters, plus get access to background checks and more.
Okay, a princess for you too.
Join free to get started. Care.com.
So that's our TV story, and stay tuned. I'd be happy to let you know if these end up working, or come back afterwards and let me know if you think they work. The second thing is investing in experiences that matter. And I think we all try to do this as brand marketers. I think in the beginning we listened, this is the old branding, by the way. In the beginning we listened to our customers, and they said, well, you know, I want to just type in my zip code. I just want to look at different caregivers, and I want to find one that's right for me. So we listened to them, and actually, the better experience was for them to actually post a job and have the caregivers come to them. So I just wanted to say, like, what we do is we listen to the members, but then we also just really listen to what the data is telling us and what's the best experience. The more guided, the better. And then we always try to build our product roadmap that's at the top of the funnel. It's, you know, we have a lot of these conversations, I don't know if you guys do, you know, where we want to build this really nice curated experience at the bottom of the funnel for our end users. But in actuality, if there are so few people getting there, it's not really worth it. So we have to really think about what's the top of the funnel and what's going to impact the most number of our members. The third thing is redefining what's normal. And you know, at Care.com, we do battle every day with probably the most powerful force on earth. And that is the myth of the perfect mom and mom guilt. So, you know, I think that everybody looks like this, right? Right? But, you know, I think that mothers still think that they have to do like this horrendous dash across town in the middle of the day to take their daughter to ballet practice. So they still think that their house is, or they are judged by how clean their kitchen is. We actually are saying it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to go on a date. In fact, it's normal. It's okay to, you know, hire the people to chase those dust bunnies, or to do the laundry, or to, you know, hire somebody to do the daycare dash at 5 o'clock. It's okay. And especially since, you know, our kind of the afternoon care situation hasn't really caught up to the way we live now, that we need more support to help us be successful. And so as a result, we're actually tapping into what we call latent demand and saying, okay, you know, you should get a standing date. And you all should have a standing date with your spouse every week. Plus, we need more babies in the works. So, you know, it's a good business to invest in date night. It's good business. You know, but also personal assistants and errands and other kinds of jobs that actually turn the service from being really kind of that high urgent, high engagement, high importance, full-time nanny job, you know, nanny position, to something that's far more kind of a lifestyle brand of, hey, Care.com is great because you can go and take a yoga class and it'll be okay. The kids are fine. See, tough judges. Fourth is investing in the audience, and we do a lot that's actually kind of an extension of the brand in this regard. And I'm just going to touch on a few of them. Again, we have this two-sided marketplace. Providers, the care providers, these are the nannies, the sitters, all the domestic workers. It's actually a very fragmented marketplace, and they don't really have the things that we have as full-time job holders. Access to benefits and access to, you know, paid vacation time, Social Security benefits, because a lot of it is under the table. So we do a lot of advocacy on the provider side to help this group. So it's getting into the conversation around immigration reform, getting into the conversation about minimum wage. It's also making sure that we're kind of helping them get paid legally and doing that advocacy. We also offer a lot on the site in terms of professional development. So access to professional jobs at businesses, as well as e-learning modules to help them build up their skills in their resume. I think global mobility, just not only in the US, but across the world. And on the family side, especially since women are our primary target, we are very interested in keeping women engaged in the workforce and providing them that care benefit to help them do that. So we do a lot of work around women's leadership initiatives, and we actually have a forum called Women Up that we host. We're actually working with the White House right now on this advocacy around flexible spending accounts, which hasn't really shifted in forever. And we also talk to women about entrepreneurship, because often, actually starting your own company, and that allows you to get that flexible care need, the care situation that you're looking for. And then, lastly, advocacy for more flexible care situations in the workforce. And then obviously Care.com is part of that. This is the mantra. 2012, again, was a huge year for acquiring companies. We acquired Parents in a Pinch here locally, which helped us provide last-minute care for families. So we do a lot to actually make sure that people can stay focused at work through the care benefit. So, the way we look at it is we have this brand positioning there for you, and we really execute on it against all of these different things. It's a public relations, the content piece, all the stuff that we're doing with the White House. It's how we look at the data, our social responsibility platform, how we build our product. And then CEO brand, Sheila Barcelo is a force, if you have met her, but she, we work a lot on kind of her speech platform and what she talks about. The last is about meeting your audience where it is, even if it's super hard. And this particularly is really about mobile. What we're seeing, and you probably are all experiencing it, is amazing revolution that is now upon us, which is the shift to mobile. And it kind of snuck up on us. So we're really shifting. These are 2013 numbers, and it's already even grown from 2013. But what we once had a nice big monitor to work with, now we actually have to think about how people are watching TV and going to their phone, and now we have to optimize it on this little itty bitty little screen, and create it, make it engaging, and make it convert, and have a brand impression, all in this size, and it's really been tough. I wanted to just close out the bookend because I started out with kind of a sad story. Although I had a very happy childhood, I just want you to know all was good. My mom was amazing. My sisters are amazing. And this is my family today, and I just wanted to point out the people, and there's a cast of thousands here that are really involved. I didn't even list them all, but this is my weekend sitter, Athena, Care.com. This is Irani. She's my afternoon sitter. She shuttles my son Kyle to his afternoon activities and gets him tutoring and tennis lessons and everything else. This is my morning sitter. She helps me get out the door in the morning because I have 3-year-old twins. They're very cute. That little guy that was smirking, there's the same smirk right there. My husband and my son Kyle, who's in the audience today. And then I've got furry family members as well, my cat and my dog. And you can see it's a lot of moving parts. These are the hurricane years. That's why my hair is so curly. And these are the people that help me manage it all. So I'm just going to end the session with, it's a little video that we show to new employees that are coming on board, just to kind of explain who we are and what's our point of view around care. And so I'm going to show it to you, and then we'll open it up for questions.
What makes a family? Is it love? Trust? Companionship? We believe it's how we take care of each other, how we're always there for each other, every day, no matter what. That's what really binds us together. At Care.com, we help families be there for the ones they love by making it easy to find great caregivers who fit right in and become part of the family too. Care.com.
We do have a nice little gifty for you guys. We do view you as an acquisition channel. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But sign up. So I'd be happy to take any questions. Yes. Wait a minute, the microphone's coming around to you.
Thank you. Great presentation. I was wondering if you could dig in a little more about why men are not part of your target audience, if you found that they just aren't part of the decision-making process, or...
Oh, they are. They are. Yeah, so the question is about men, and so it's just the data speaks for itself. So what we find is that we have about 90% women on the site, and actually creates a very efficient marketing strategy. So because a lot of the women are on the provider side, and a lot of the women are on the family side, we can actually target both with one ad. But we find that men are involved, but they're just not the ones that are signing up. And they're also not the ones that are kind of instigating the date nights. They're just not as romantic, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm not making a comment about you personally, but yeah. So what we find are men are more involved in senior care issues and less involved in the child care. And I'm not sure why that is. But when we think about providing care.com as a benefit in the workplace, we think of families, not necessarily women. But our primary target is women. Yes?
What percent of your free members convert to paid, and then how long do they last?
So we're seeing these. So the question is, what's our conversion rate, and then how long do they stay? So we don't reveal our conversion numbers. But I will say that what we're seeing is the trends are changing based on mobile versus desktop. And so depending on what channel they come in, their conversion shifts. And then what we also find is that they stay for about 3 to 4 months. It takes about that long. They come in thinking, oh, okay, I'll just find something quick and then I'll unplug this thing. But in actuality, when they start seeing kind of the breadth of the service and they get into the interviewing process, it takes them a little bit longer. Yeah.
Versus senior care.
Yeah.
And I would think that the first two may be a portal to senior care where you handle them exclusively separately.
So I think the question you're asking, do you see people coming in as child care and moving to senior care? Senior care ends up being kind of what we call the crisis that nobody sees coming, right? And I think I'm looking around at the faces here, and we're probably all, if not already dealing with it, are going to deal with it in the next 10, 15 years. But childcare is kind of that light, fluffy, fun way to get into the service, and people think about organizing around childcare. People know that they're going to have a baby, and so they know that they need a nanny or something, a babysitter or something. But senior care ends up being kind of something nobody plans for. So what we've had trouble with is kind of acquiring around senior care and thinking about the top of the funnel for senior care. It is true that once people get in and then they start seeing, and it's not like the full-time care, but what they could think about is actually putting together a bunch of little services like housekeeping and transportation and maybe a companion or meal prep. And actually putting together a package that allows their elderly loved one to stay in their home, age in place, for a lot longer. And we're definitely seeing those trends move towards aging in place versus a traditional nursing home, which I don't even think is going to exist in 5-10 years, or retirement home. The demographics are shifting to people staying in their home for longer. The crossover between the two of them.
So just what percent are just babysitter nannies?
Oh, it's the volume is in childcare. Yeah. Senior care it's tough and far more fragmented actually. Let me take one from over here.
Thanks. When you're marketing, I guess both to the moms and also the caregivers, what percentage would you say are coming from more urban areas, so let's just say Boston,
Yeah.
versus suburbs? So I'm down in Hinton. So
Yeah.
what percentage is there a generalization? Is there more here, say, than down there?
So I have I actually took it out of the presentation. We have a heat map which shows the distribution. But in all of the major metros were well represented. You know, we're talking hundreds. We usually do a 10-mile radius, and because that's really what's kind of convenient for families, and any more than 10 miles kind of gets unwieldy. But we don't say, okay, urban versus town. We have full coverage nationwide. But I will say that, you know, we're heavily densified along the coast, with a higher density along the coast, and kind of in the Nevadas and Wyoming's not as much.
Yeah. And do you market differently for, say, Nevada versus California, or is it
Nope.
one?
No, one national buy. Yes.
When you enter your market, do you first look at curating the content and finding caregivers, and you then have a product to deliver out to the consumers, or are you looking at finding where you can build that consumer interest and filling in with the caregivers? How do you?
Yeah, we try very hard to build out the provider base first, and usually it's through PR, some content, and we certainly did this in the beginning where we invested heavily in recruiting providers first. It's always a tough balance, because if the providers don't see the jobs and they're like, why am I doing this? So it's kind of an interesting dance in the beginning, but once we feel like we've got the ratios where we need it to be, then we can build. But again, the marketing reaches both, which is kind of the beauty of it. And we're not like having to go out and acquire men over here and women over here. So it actually creates some efficiency.
So you had mentioned about your efforts too in entrepreneurship and mentoring, but didn't elaborate. I know you only had so much space
Yeah.
for the presentation. Would you be able to give an example of what you're doing in that area?
Sure. So actually, over the last summer, we partnered with a company called NIFTY. It's a National Federation Entrepreneurs Teaching and Entrepreneurship. And it actually was a camp for young girls to teach them entrepreneurial skills. So we're thinking about kind of, again, that kind of next generation, the next wave. We look at millennials and how they use our service, but also further downstream. And that's just one example. We have the platform called Women Up, which is really about getting more women involved in starting their own business and getting funded and working with VCs and putting business plans together and things like that. And a lot of kind of diverse activities around that. Yes?
Thank you for sharing a portion of your personal story. That was very powerful. Trust is an important component in your brand because you're in our families. And you also have this challenge of, well, I'm curious, how do you wrestle with or balance the sale of personal data with the trust component of your brand? One, it's a great revenue stream, and two, it could be a potential, perceived as a potential risk with your brand, which is enveloped in trust.
Yeah. So you're bringing up a point that, you know, we monitor heavily. So did everybody hear the question? It was essentially, how do we monitor the trust component, because it has such a big impact on the brand. So we invest, as I say, a lot in the platform to try to create a safe environment. We don't have kind of like the consumer policing aspect of it. We actually, you know, do a lot behind the scenes to ensure that, you know, bad people aren't on the site. But we think that the most powerful thing we can do is actually arm our families with the right information to make sure that they're checking out their caregiver. It is kind of a thing that we have to live with. I mean, as a branding person, I have to live with that, you know, a large part of the brand is kind of outside of my control or outside of my hands. But we do a lot, you know, through reviews and references and the tools on our site to help try to protect it as much as possible. Yes?
It seems like television has been such an important platform for you and for getting the brand out. Can you speak a little bit more to the media mix and what other media has been successful for you? Has it been radio, digital, print?
Yeah. So radio has not been as successful, but with the exception of senior care, there's been some interesting things, especially on NPR. But we have a mix, and you're right, I only told one story of one channel. But we use SEO, SEM, display, we do some outdoor, we do print, we do events, we do a lot of events, especially around workplace solutions. And I think we've invested heavily on the content side, actually, to build out our SEO footprint. And, we're also hoping that between SEO and word of mouth, we can actually put our TV franchise out of business. But as right now, we're still building the service. Again, 2% penetrated. We do have a 26% brand recognition right now, which is great. But again, we're early. So, we're still, we're trying to crack the code on a few things. Display, I don't know why. We're still working on it. I'm just being honest. We don't have everything figured out, and we're still pretty young.
What do you find on the B2B side? It's most effective. You mentioned events. You do a lot of events. Really trying to, engage the corporate and HR side of things. But are there other things that you find are working?
On the B2B side, we actually have a full sales staff that make phone calls all day, and they build out our B2B platform. So right now it's dependent on kind of a live operator, but we also invest in the SEO part of it. Yes.
What are you doing in terms of this?
I have to honestly answer not much right now, but I think it's something we're definitely going to start looking at more. I mean, it's something that actually Diana's here, creative director. We've thought about, and we still are kind of right now. We're still in growth mode. We're still in establishing and growth mode, but it's. If you have stuff you want to talk to me about later, but I'd be happy to talk about it more. We haven't really wrapped our head around it. Yes.
Is there a reason why you haven't used real stories to tell, to tell your story? Just because you started off that way, and that really resonates, and it kind of brings the problem solution to life so well?
Yeah. So we do. We actually, if you go onto our YouTube channel, you'll start to see some of those stories. Here's what we found, and I'd love anybody's thoughts on this, but care is so intensely personal. I mean, I shared with you my story, which was difficult enough, I practiced it a few times. But, it's actually very intensely personal to people, what's happening in their home. It's their children, and for senior care, also grueling and heart-wrenching at times. And so people don't really want to talk about it in that way. But we actually have some videos on our YouTube channel which show those stories. And it's funny you should mention this because we're just actually playing around with the idea of doing a senior care spot that's actually from a woman who receives the service, and hoping to get that on air in a couple of weeks. But you're right, they're some of the most affecting and emotionally powerful stories. Everyone has that picture on the beach, I think. And everybody has a family, and either you're going through it now or you've gone through it in the past. Yes.
Hi. So I love care.com. I have a 9-year-old, and I started using it right after our nanny, just out there. So thank you for making my life easier. I really appreciate that. And now that she's 9, I'm not using care.com so much anymore. I'm kind of got my city stable, midnight sitters and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just kind of curious, where care.com is thinking going forward. I know you have senior care. My parents are great shape right now.
Yeah.
About that. Our dogs were actually some dog daycare for our dogs
Yeah.
there and stuff. And so I was just wondering, I'm one of those people that came in for a couple months, came out.
Yeah.
So just give me a subscriber, but I'm not really actively engaged.
Yeah.
I'm going to reactivate you.
Oh, I shall reactivate you. Well, I would say that what we do find is that things do shift. Caregivers move around a lot. People move. It's not just your situation. And then when you're dealing with, you can find a pet sitter through care.com. I think that, what we're trying to do is, again, that latent demand to say, hey, essentially you're going to need a caregiver to do your date nights, to do your yoga classes, to do all the things else you want to do. And so it's a matter of trying to shift your perception that it's just about babysitters and nannies, and trying to get you to think about, hey, maybe you should hire somebody to tackle your garage, given that it's spring outside, obviously. But you could get somebody to just like do kind of things that you don't want to do. You'd rather spend your time with your family, for example. So we'll keep working on you. What's your name? You should be reactivated. One more. Yes.
Thank you. This is great. One thing I was thinking about throughout your presentation was lean in and kind of the whole movement around lean in.
Yeah.
And one part in particular I kept thinking about was Cheryl Sandberg's piece about
don't leave before you leave.
Don't leave before you leave. So,
I've read it. Yeah.
Thank you. So I was wondering if you could kind of, have you thought about that as a partnership, or kind of how are you on board with that whole lean in movement that's happening?
Yeah. So Sheila is actually friends with Cheryl, and they talk about this every now and then. I think that I would love, and I was just talking to Kathy about this before I came on, I would love a more clear line for people to connect the dots that actually, in order for people like a Cheryl to be successful at work, they have to have that village behind them to help them do that. We've talked a little bit about partnership, but nothing has really kind of formulated yet. But we would love people to make that connection more, that it's really about having the right support at work to help you be successful.